question here. Let's take a look at the next thing we have, which is the challenging part, or not the challenge part, but to increase the difficulty, which is now we have a, if you look at this thing here and compare to the previous one, this thing here is we have a set of 3 sets, right? We have a W, an X, and a Y set. The universal set, which is this item here, the capital U, the universal set is basically tell you that this is your limitation. This is everything that we're going to use. We will not use anything beside this letter here. The W, which is including this item, the X, which is includes this item, the Y, which is include this item, right? So the difference between this and the previous problem is this one here, they give you the individual element. Last time in the previous problem, instead of say each A, B, C, and D, they say we have 5 elements. We have 4 elements, we have 5 elements, right? And in total, we have 10 elements, right? So given this thing here, they ask you to construct the Venn diagram. So one thing is good news, all of this thing here, we still have good news. Your Venn diagram for 3 set for us, our 3 set Venn diagram will look like this, which is, again, my W is the red circle, my X set is the blue circle, and my Y set is a black circle. And again, anything that outside of this thing here will not be in any of those. And just like before, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you start the Venn diagram, you want to ask yourself, do we have any item that is in both W, X, and Y? So we want to start in the center first. We want to start at this region. We want to start at this region first, which is, do you agree that this region here, we have a C? Because C is in in W, in X, and in Y. C is the element that overlap all 3 of them, which is they are in the red circle, they're in the blue circle, and they're in the Y circle. So we're done with C. Like I mentioned earlier, once you use it, you don't want to use it again, right? Once you use it, you don't want to reuse. Now, for me, I like to start in the center and then go up this item here. So between W and X, do I have anything in common besides C? Because I already use C. Do you agree that between W and X, I have a J in common, right? Which is, again, my J will be right here because that is what I have in terms of W and X. So once I use this, I don't want to use it again, so I X them out. I'm done with the J. Now I want to go here, which is X and Y. Between X and Y, do I have anything in common other than the C? So you can see that we have an H, which is, again, once I use it, I don't want to reuse it, which is, again, do you agree that my H is in this region here? And lastly, between W and Y, do they share any item? Which is, hopefully you guys see that they share a B and also an F, which is, this is where my B and my F come in. So my B, I'm done with my B, so my B is gone, my F is gone, this gone, and this is gone. So first of all, before we continue, question where I got my C, where I got my J, where I got my H, where I have my B and my F in this Venn diagram. Any question here? So everybody clear on where I got this item here? Again, this is in W and also in X, but not in Y. This is in X and Y, but not in W, and vice versa. This is in W, Y, but not in X. This is in all 3, okay? And if I have this, you can see what is left over in W. Well, left over in W is only A, right? The leftover in W is A, so I'm done with A. What is left over in X? Well, left over in X is my I, right? Which is I'm done with the I. What is left over in Y? Left over in Y is my D. I'm done with my D. So everybody see that in my W, I use all my letter. In my X, I use all my letter. And in my Y, I use all my letter. Now, what am I left with? Which is, do you agree that I have not used my E anywhere? And I have not used my I have not used my E anywhere, and I have not used my G anywhere, which is the E and the G is outside of all three of this item. Everybody see that? Which is, again, we are done. We no longer have any element that we have not used, right? Everything we use in the universe, everything we use in W, everything we use in X, and everything we use in Y. So first of all, question how to take this item, here and put it in the Venn diagram. Any question how I take this individual item and put it in this Venn diagram here? All right. If you don't have question, let's take a look at follow-up question. So once you have the Venn diagram, right? Once you have the Venn diagram, they ask you for the follow-up question, which is this follow-up question right here. So let's take one at a time. Don't worry. Take one at a time, which is this is a little bit harder than the previous one in terms of a 2 set. We have a 3 set. So for me, ladies and gentlemen, remember what I told you in the beginning of class. If you have a union, you just combine your region together. The union is the word or, is either one item or the other item. If you have an intersection, everybody see the intersection, meaning they have to overlap, okay? So this is what I want to do, or this is what I want you to do, is don't look at the whole thing. Ask yourself, what is in my parenthesis? Work inside your parenthesis first and work your way outward, okay? So let's take a look at the parenthesis, which is, do you agree that the parenthesis tell me, give me the element that is outside of X, what is not in X, and also inside Y. So let's take a look at this thing here. Do you agree that the lime green that I highlighted, those are the item is outside of X, right? Those item does not touch X, right? This item here, whatever this item, those are the item is outside of X. Now, remember I told you guys the intersection is now within this item. What item is also in Y? Do you agree that this is in Y? This is in Y, and this is in Y. Do you agree that we have this item, this item, this item? We have 4 items that is outside of the X region, and only 2 of them is in Y, okay? So remember, we need to do this, which is, like I mentioned, my orange item is the item in Y. But because of the intersection, I can only choose the item that have both color, that have the green and the orange, which is, those are the 2 items that is outside of my X. This is the 2 items that is outside of my X, but also inside my Y. Everybody see how I came up with this orange item? This is the item in my parenthesis. In my parenthesis, I'm looking for an item outside of my X circle, but those items have to be in my Y circle. So the 2 items that is outside of X and inside the Y is the B, the F, and the D. we're not done, right? After that, we are not done because that is only what inside your parenthesis. Now, what else do they ask you? They ask you this thing here, which is, remember I told you that the union is basically tell you whatever you just find out, which is you just find out that the B, the D, and the F is outside of my X and inside my Y. Whatever you just find out, take that and put it together with the W. Do you agree that this is in W, this is in W, and this is in W? So whatever you just find out, just combine that with W. Doesn't matter because of the union, you don't looking for the overlap. Because of the union, you just looking for what is outside of X and in Y. Put that together with W, which is, again, that is my answer here. My answer will be whatever in the shaded region, which is the W, A, B, C, D, F, and J. So the challenge part of this thing here is instead of just one operation, you have multiple operations. And when you have multiple operations, you will always have the parenthesis. You always want to do inside your parenthesis first. And inside your parenthesis, you ask yourself, once I have my parenthesis, do I looking for the overlap of the leftover, or do I just combine with the leftover? Let me ask you guys, let me pause and ask you guys a question here in terms of how I have A, B, C, D, F, and J.
Mr. Trent, I see how you have it, but I think we need to have some Zoom to ourselves. We have to set up something because I'm still having questions on basically how to read it in English forms based on this that we have in front of us. Because when I get to B, I think I'm confused.
When you get to B.
Yes, when I
Again,
get to
the English form, I have the slide, I have the video from last Thursday on Canvas that each symbolic, what is the meaning of each symbolic, right? How do you, you know, and you know, let's take a look at B. You know,
okay.
Let's take a look at B and take a look. And again, you can always send me an email, or we can set up any meeting if you need it. So one thing, like I mentioned, you know, this is what you have. This is what you have. Let me clear this thing here. This is your regular Venn diagram. So we only have two items. You know, I told you, well, not two items. We only have three items. If you remember, we only have three items here, which is we have a intersection, we have a union, we have a complement. Okay, so let's take a look at each of. So if you look at B, what do you want to do first? Well, clearly we cannot do this operation because we don't know what is outside of W, and we don't know what this item is, right? If there is a parenthesis, we want to work inside your parenthesis first. So that's the first thing you want to do, is whatever your parenthesis, that is what you want to work first. Now, inside your parenthesis, you ask yourself, what operation do we have? So do you agree that the operation I have is this right here? The connect between the two is the union, right? The right side U is the union, and reminder, the union is you just combine them together. The union is tell you, take whatever this item that you will find, you haven't found it yet, whatever this item outside of the X, put it together, combine them together with the Y. Okay, so let's do this by hand. Let's look at this thing here, and before I shade it, do you agree that this is outside my X circle? This is outside my X circle. This is outside my X circle, and this is outside my X circle. First of all, X prime. Do you see X prime right here? X prime tell me that give me the item outside of my X circle. My X circle is the blue, so anything outside of the blue is outside my X circle. Agree?
Agree.
Now, doesn't
Yes.
matter what item is, doesn't matter what item that you just give me, they tell you union, combine it, unite it with the Y, the item inside the Y. So this union, this right side U, this is called union, which is the unite item, which is what is in your Y. Do you agree that this is your Y, this is your Y, this is your Y, and this is inside your Y? Inside my Y circle, I have 4 regions here. So do you see that my yellow item is outside of my X, my pink item is inside my Y? And the union part basically tell you that whatever you have, whatever you just identify, that is what you have. You unite them together. You take the first item and you add it to the second item. So whatever you just circle, whatever you just box, whatever I just box, those are the items that is either outside of X, is either outside of X or inside of Y. You who say, wait, C and H is in X. I don't care, it's in Y. So it's either one or the other. It's either outside of X or inside of Y. Okay, and again, this is my color coded. My color coded is basically, again, my green is the outside my X. It's the same as before. Those are the item outside my X. And the orange is the item inside my Y, which is tell me that this is what I have. I forgot this A. This is what I need this A to be orange. So this, the yellow item is basically tell me that the item outside of my X or inside my Y. Okay, I forgot this region here, ladies and gentlemen. But once we have that, now this is what you ask yourself is, we done with the parenthesis. We are done with the parenthesis. Now you ask yourself is, what operation do they tell us? Because of the intersection. So you look at the yellow item that you shaded. You look at the yellow item that you shaded. Which of this yellow item that you shaded is outside of the W, right? On top of this thing here, do you agree that this item is not in W, this item is not in W, this item is not in W? We don't care about the I because the I is not in yellow, right? Within the yellow shaded item, which of the yellow shaded item is outside of the W circle? And that is your objective, or that is what you need to see is, again, those 3 items. Those 3 items is, again, I put them red because anything in red is not in W, right? And because of the intersection, the goal for intersection is you need to have 2 colors. Because of the intersection, they have to be overlapped. And the only thing overlap, the only thing that you see the spray paint red and the background yellow is this item, and this item. None other item I have a yellow, also a red item. Again, this is only red, I'm not going to use it. And this is only yellow, I'm not going to use it. Okay, so, and again, on Thursday, like I mentioned to most of you guys, on Thursday, you have to know how to read your item.
Yeah, you want some cereal?
Question?
Not cooking.
Mr. Tran, I have a question.
Yes.
So,
What's
so
that?
you
Not
put
playing.
in parentheses first, and then once you get that set of of letters, you only use those to then go back to the first part of the question.
Yes.
Okay.
To make it
you don't worry about anything else that isn't even in the parentheses.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we always want to focus in the parenthesis. That's the first thing, is whatever in the parenthesis, we focus it in it, okay? And like I mentioned, the difference between this item that I have in pink right here, the difference between this item that I have in pink, or the intersection, is once you have the parenthesis, the intersection is basically say, now, the thing that you have in parentheses, you only look, the thing that you highlighted, you only look at those items. You don't look at anything else. You only look at the in the parentheses, and within the parentheses, what fit this description, okay? For the intersection, basically, again, this is what I have in my parentheses, and let's say that this is what I have in my parentheses. And based on what I have in my parentheses, what fit the description that is outside of W, which is this fit the description, this fit the description, and this fit the description. Those are the only 3 items that fit the description that is outside of the W, and that I shaded. I don't look at I, because I don't care, because I is not in my parentheses. And again, the difference between the intersection versus the union, the difference between the intersection versus the union is, the union, you have to use it. The union is whatever fit the description, you use it. So for instance, if this were to be the union, then you have to use everything outside of W, and also what you have, which is you have to use the I, okay? Is that making sense?
Yes.
I'm a little confused. So in the parentheses on B, it's what's not in X, but is in Y.
No,
and
not but. What not in
what's
X,
not in X.
or in Y.
Okay, so that means that you got to put all of Y, right?
Right.
Okay, and to intersect it with what's not in W, we don't include the X.
So
Like,
this is
the letters that we have for Y is the B, F, C, H, and D, right?
B, F, C, H, and D.
Okay. Now, what's not in W, we would take the B, F, and C out and just leave the D. I mean, we'll take the B, F, C, and the H out.
Not BF, because BF is in W. Again, first of all, this is yellow too. First of all, let me change this. This item is also in yellow. Okay. So first of all, let's take a look at the parenthesis. The parenthesis, I did not highlight this item, but this item. So in the parenthesis, they tell you what is outside of X, put that together within Y. Okay. So if you read this thing here, you see that right here, this is outside of my X circle, put that together with my Y circle. I don't care if it's in both or not in both. I don't care. As long as it's not in X, I take it. As long as it's in Y, I take it. Combine them together. Everybody understand this wording right here? Outside of X or in Y. So that's what my parentheses tell me. The union, unite the two together. Whatever outside of X, unite that with inside my Y. And that is why I also can use C and H. I know you say, wait, C and H is in X. Why do we use it? Because it's in Y. Everybody agree?
Yes.
So that's the union. Now to go over to the intersection, the intersection is very restricted. The intersections tell you this. You just highlight me what is outside of X or in Y. Based on the thing that you highlight, based on the thing that you just highlighted to me, which of those yellow region is outside of W? That's the question they ask you is, what, again, do you agree that this is outside of W, this is outside of W, and this is outside of W? And again, I agree, this is outside of W, but this is not in yellow, so we don't care. We only care about the thing that in yellow, because of the intersection is basically whatever in the parentheses. Now, what is those things in the parentheses? What is outside of W? And that's why my answer was D, E, G, and H.
Okay, I got it.
Is that making sense, Tina? Whoever asked the question, is that making sense of? And again, from like I mentioned, the hardest part is how can you take this symbolic? On Thursday I told you guys that how can you take this symbolic and convert that to English, to the way that you know how to read it, right? And if you can read that, right, this is the word and this is the word or. The word and, they have to overlap. They have to be double shaded. The word or, you combine them together, okay? Well, let's stop here for today. Let's stop here for today. I'm running out of time. So let's see. If you have